Hello out there. Welcome to Champions Are Built. This is Coach EJ, Eric Johnson, the brand.
And this is Coach Aaron Thigpen, the source. Again, thank you guys. Thank you for tuning in. This is our Champions Are Built section. We've got a great guest for you guys today. It's someone we've known, for going on 25 plus years. It's so funny. We were just talking about how all of us grew up in this industry at its infancy. I mean, there wasn't an industry when we all started doing this, and now, 27 years, 28 years later, we're still standing, we're still here. And I'd love to introduce to you guys a great friend and a great resource to not only the baseball community, but the training community and sports community is Alan Jaeger. He's the founder of Jaeger Sports. He's an author of many books. He's written the mental training book, Getting Focused, Staying Focused. He's got a DVD, Thrive on Throwing. And then he's also got his signature arm health program, Strength and Conditioning Throwing. He's probably the father of long toss, which most of our baseball players are familiar with. If you're not a baseball player, you haven't heard of long toss, then you haven't been playing baseball.
Exactly.
Real baseball. He's coached numerous, over 200 Major League Baseball players. He's worked with Major League Baseball organizations from the Rangers to a variety of different teams. And one of the reasons why I think he's a special guest is Alan brings something that I think most people neglect. I think of sports as being both science and art.
Right.
And I tend to err on the art side. Not to neglect the science, but I err on the art side. Here's a guy who is able to look at the science and the art, but also look at the philosophical bend to sports and the importance that takes for athletes to be successful. And out of many things we want to talk about today, that's definitely, I think, something that's in his wheelhouse and that you guys can get some valuable information from. So without further ado, Alan Jaeger, welcome to the program.
Hey man, thanks for having me on, guys. And as I said right before we got on, the word history jumped out at me this morning, and it's not often you jump on a Zoom call with two guys, not one guy, that you go back, 20, 25 years with, and there's just some history there, and it's just like fermented. It's just like saying, it's like wearing that great pair of shoes, man, that you've had forever and you just love. And so I'm honored to be on. By the way, great job on the bio, man. The only little correction I'm going to make, because it's just how I'm built, I can't help it, man. My brain is always troubleshooting, but we can go with 200 professional guys, major leaguers. We've had our share of major leaguers, but we'll put it under the professional column.
There you go.
But no, thank you for mentioning my history and all that. But at the end of the day, it's what we all do, right? We all organically love teaching. We love making it. Look, at the end of the day, I think, why do you get into coaching? You love impacting people. You want to make a difference. So we all have come down that path. So it's just a joy to be on this with you guys.
Right. So Alan, again, you've got some teachings and some education in the Eastern arts, Zen, and I guess it's called Taoism. I can't.
It's Tao. The T is a D technically,
okay.
So you would say Taoism.
Taoism. Got it. And obviously that colors your view of how you're going to work with athletes, maybe how you're going to coach them up, and maybe how you even instill some of the values and approaches that athletes need. And again, you've worked with so many different athletes. What maybe do you think is the importance of establishing a philosophy? And it doesn't necessarily have to be an Eastern philosophy, but having some kind of Northern star that kind of helps to direct a lot of your thinking.
Wow, that's a great question. I encourage any sort of up and coming coach, whenever I get a chance to talk to them, to write down. I don't necessarily say. Actually, I do say. I say, really, you should either write a book, write a manual. But whatever you do, I guess it's like a business plan. You want to put information down, because if you feel like you have these ideas that are going to impact people that you want to share with the world, especially when you're younger, you have to, we've all gone through that, right? You have to organize your thoughts. First of all, you have to kind of birth it. You have to get it out. And so I strongly encourage any up-and-coming coach, any coach really at any level, if they haven't done this, is to sit down, and it's work, but it's one of the greatest kinds of work you can truly do. And just write. I tell people, don't worry about organizing it. Don't worry if it's going to turn into a book or not. Just free flow. Just write about hitting, throwing, defense, running, whatever, mental game. And just start to formulate your ideas, because you'll be shocked what comes out of you. And by the way, as we all know, when you start writing, more things come out of you that you didn't even realize you were thinking about.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think step one, and I think that's for me what happened. It was 1990. I was just starting out. I was still a pitching coach at the local junior college, LA Mission Junior College. And I started really getting heavy into meditation and Zen and stuff I had studied, stuff I went through in college that really affected me and got me interested in the field of mental training, sports psychology, and eventually I got heavy into Eastern philosophy. And so long story short, as I wrote my book, it took me 4 years of pretty much round the clock writing, 1990 to 1994. At some point around 2000, we came out with a video, Thrive on Throwing. At some point, maybe in 2015 or 16, I wrote the year-round throwing manual. So I think this all comes back to, the question, which is, number one, that star you were talking about, Aaron. I just feel like if you really want to teach, can you go out there and wing it and be a great teacher? Of course. But I just feel like there's something special and magical about sitting down and just writing. Maybe this happens over the course of a few years, but you just birth this information, you get the creative process going, as you guys know. And then you put it in practice with people, and you see how it works, what takes, maybe what doesn't take. But it all kind of comes back at that point of reference that you've been there, you've touched it, you've expressed it, and now you're aware of it. So I would say that would be sort of, and that was what I did. Fortunately, I did it really more unconsciously. No one really came to me and said, hey, do this. I mean, my mom was a writer. I'm sure that helped. My dad is into writing, but I guess I just felt like I have to get this out. Right. And then once it can come out, it opens up a whole nother world, and another world, and another world, and another world. And so I guess that would be the way to start out that answer.
Yeah, it's funny, Alan. I feel that because the books that I've written and the things I've gone through in coaching clinics, and it goes back to I see 1990. I think of Aaron. I think of you. Guys that were in the game back in the day. We're all doing this together. But I remember writing these first books that we wrote 4 editions with Ron Wotus, the Giants third base coach, who's retiring, by the way. Get a shout out to that guy, the longest tenured coach in Giants history. But the whole thing is, when you start writing down these ideas, and I love what you said, things just come out, and you start learning about other things that you have to offer. And I love the fact that you start talking about Zen and things, how you started and how they formulated ideologies that you have. Oh boy, that just brings it back home. For me, it's just the things that I wrote and the things I want to continue to write. And it just refreshes, it brings you to life. I like to say it brings you to life. And you go out there to teach, because we have passion, all of us have passion, all 3 of us, it just brings it out each time. It always comes out. And I love that, because I understand what you're saying. I truly do.
And I just want to add one piece, because clearly you're resident. It's just cool. That's the cool thing about the conversations like this organically. Like, you could feel how it affects people. Like, it affected you because you did it. You lived it. Aaron's lived it. But here's another thing that people forget. And you mentioned come to life, and that's why I used the word birth earlier. Mm-hmm. But here's another reason why I wanted to write stuff down, and why we all did it, is if we go speak at a clinic, or nowadays, we were all pre-internet. Nowadays it could be a Zoom with a team. We just want the team to know, hey, if you want to follow in and do a deeper dive and really go into what we just talked about in great detail, here's a book, here's a manual. We have so much free stuff on YouTube, you know what I mean? It's like, but my point is that you put the content out there so that people can now have somewhere to go, versus if you don't have that content, that's the other sort of, you know, frustrating part of it, is that you have these great ideas maybe, and you go out there in the world, and then you leave, and then yes, maybe they took good notes, maybe they follow up, but as you guys know, when you have a book or a video or anything out there, it is so important that they can go to that resource and then really get the 3-year deep dive as opposed to the 1-hour clinic.
Right. No, I love that you talked about writing. I mean, I haven't written my first book, 1,000 articles, but I'm still waiting on that first book. But no, that's on my bucket list to do. But I get what you're saying, because writing releases the flow of ideals. I mean, I've got notebooks full of things that basically I call my, you know, my 3 a.m. writing. You know, you wake up in the middle of the night and all of a sudden your brain is going and you're just, you know, boom, you're writing things down. And I think that's a process not just for coaches, but for athletes, you know, because that might be the time you troubleshoot your swing, or how to fix your arm slide, or how to place your foot when you're running, you know, whatever case may be. You know, it's that quiet time where the mind, you know, at least for me, tends to work, and writing kind of facilitates that. So I think that's an excellent observation, and it seems to be something we're all doing. So great commonality. Next question. I'm really big on this art science thing, because in my background, I have a very heavy training background from a Russian coach, which is very art science based. But then I also had a coach that was very on the art side, and I, you know, where basically it was about through feel and flow and motion. It wasn't about, hey, this arm has to be at 90 degrees, this elbow has to be here. You know, we're not doing all of that stuff. It's like, hey, let's find the flow of the body, and that's how it's gonna happen. And you seem to be able to blend the two. And I know you're a practitioner of yoga. And, you know, when did you kind of come to that realization? Was, you know, one before the other? You know, were you more kind of traditional, hey, this is the way, you know, pitching mechanics and throwing mechanics are done? And then you kind of moved over, you know, how did you kind of reconcile the two? You know, how did you get to that point?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I grew up always as a field person, whether it was baseball, tennis, basketball, football, hockey. It didn't matter. Ping pong, swimming, diving off our you know, diving board in our pool. So to me, I think that's why I teach what I teach, and that's why I fell in love with Zen and a lot of Eastern arts, is because it is all about feel and intuition and instinct, and really Zen is, there's a lot of ways to describe it, but a really simple way to describe it is no mind, you know, or no thought. And I learned at a young age, I don't know how, or, you know, maybe it was just something that we all kind of learn at some point, but, you know, I learned I perform my best, whether it's sports or doing a conversation, you know, or speaking, going up to a girl or whatever. I'm at my best in any walk of life, when I'm instinctive, unconscious, not thinking, purely intuitive, because that to me is where the flow is. The flow is in this space of no thought,
right,
and no mind. So that's if you're in the, so as an example, if you define the zone, which is tricky to do, but basically a few key elements are the absence of thought, right? The absence of time, future and the past. There's not even I know it sounds funny, but there's really not even a now, because that's still a demarcation, but it's close. But there's no thought, there's no time, right? There's no awareness, therefore, of future consequences, results, past issues. The point is that it Zen drew me in because I first related it to sports. When do I have my best game? When I'm just unconscious. I'm flowing. There's no thoughts. I'm just purely reacting.
Yeah.
Whatever I've worked on physically, whatever ability I have, so to speak, that's going to have its best chance of coming out when my mind is quiet and empty. Okay? And emptiness is another kind of common theme with Zen and meditation. So long story short is the idea is that as I got into, teaching pitching or teaching long toss, the funny thing is yes, you deal with mechanical stuff. I was videotaping players too, but my default always, and still to this day, my default is still heavy into feel. And I'll quote,
amen.
Amen. And I'll quote a really good buddy of mine. I quote him all the time. His tagline, like on everything he talks about, is trust what you feel. And his name is Lance Wheeler, who's the inventor of the core velocity belt, who created Pitch Palooza. And I just look. That's why the whole thing, but with data analytics, I understand there's some benefits there. Use them. But man, when push comes to shove, this is like one of my taglines. When push comes to shove, man, you have to go into instinctive mode. You have to trust your feel. I'm sure your Russian coach gave you really important fundamentals or some infrastructure that got in your system. Then at some point, look, this is everything in life. You learn to ride a bike, you have to left, right it, training wheels. And at some point, and maybe you swerve a little bit, like a baby learning to walk, but at some point you just start riding. There's no more thought of technique. We all know that. And I use that metaphor. To me, that's in life. And when I talk to an athlete or a person really about life, I'm always trying to get them ultimately back to this place of quiet and trust your instinct. So that was a little bit of a mishmash, but that sort of is
No, I completely agree. And you mentioned two things that I always come back to myself is instinct and intuition. I'm really big on athletes finding and listening to their own intuition, because in my own personal growth, and I hate to bring this back to me, but I can tell you that I became a better athlete when I started trusting my own intuition and instincts versus relying on just solely the intuition and instincts of the coach. And I call it regaining my power. It was during that time that coach said to me, hey, Aaron, there's nothing else I can teach you. And it basically freed me to start to explore my own feelings of who I was as an athlete and how I wanted to train and how I wanted to express that and explore that. And so I think when you talk about intuition and instincts, I think because in American sports, we're so structured and it's so coach dominant, follow the coach, we give a lot of that power to the coach, and we kind of ignore some of those things that are going on in our own gut, in our own mind.
Well, let's face it, man, at the end of the day, it's you. It's your, whatever you've learned from the day you were born until this moment, right? Whether it's how you hit, how you pitch, how you run. At some point, we can call it the moment of truth, right? It's about pure trust. It's about pure feel, right? We can talk all day long about hitting and pitching mechanics, running mechanics. But if you're at the Olympics and you got a 100-meter dash coming up any second now, you have any thoughts in your mind, thoughts are going to basically interfere with your movements. If you have any even strategies, maybe you have a strategy from the blocks, to get the right start. But as we all know, and that's why I keep coming back to this theme, which I know you guys shaking your heads are all about it, but I agree with you. You have to empower the athlete and say, look, use your coach's information. Get some structure if you need, get some mechanics if you need. But at some point, this is going to come back to feel. It's going to come back to your I use the term the higher intelligence of your body, right? Like we have inherent movements unconsciously that are natural, that are intuitive, that are instinctive, right? They're built in. Now, maybe part of that came from learning some physical, technical training, but at some point, the files are in the computer. And now it's all about, not mostly about, in my opinion, or in my experience, it's 100, it's not 99.9, it's 100% now about trust and feel. And I love the word intuition. I love the word instinct, whatever people can relate to. But in my experience, again, I come back to the zone a lot, because I feel like when you're in the, because we've all related, every human being has been in the zone, whether they realize it or not, a decent amount, because when you watch a good movie and you get lost, when you listen to a good song and you get lost in the song, when you're in a great conversation, you get lost in the song, that's all the zone. I know we make it out to be this incredible place, which it is, but I have a saying, which I think you guys will appreciate. The zone is always happening. It's just a question of whether you're thinking about something that's taking you out of it. So when you start from that premise, that it's not I'm going to go find it, and I'm going to go, or how do I go get into it? No, this comes back to Aaron, something you said about empowering yourself. If it's already in you, 24/7, not part-time. If you were born with it and it's in you, the question is are you thinking about anything that's now taking you out of it? And so when you start from that premise, you're like, wow, okay, the place I want to be is already here. Now it's really about being quiet and empty. Here we come back to Zen, right? So that I can let it just express itself freely, which is when you're in the zone. I know it sounds funny, but when you're in a great conversation and you're lost in the conversation, you are expressing yourself unconsciously, intuitively, and freely. There's no thought process about it. I'm not saying you don't stop and have you start to break stuff down, but anyway, that's why I just love this concept of just trusting your instincts, getting quiet. Most of what I eventually get people to do, in my opinion, I mean, my main goal is that I ultimately want them to meditate, because we can, don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean we can't talk about, again, the nuts and bolts of throwing, long toss, what have you, but at the end of the day, if the ultimate goal is to get quiet so you can be free, to allow your hard work and your instincts to come out, well, then why would we not be spending a lot of time on that? It's like spend 3 hours in the batting cage, 3 hours on a mound. Well, pitcher wouldn't do that, but anyway, spend a lot of time on a mound.
Right.
It's funny to me to think that we are so easy at putting countless hours into physical work, which I admire people. I'm that way. I'm a frickin', I almost said the word. I said frickin', but I said almost said the word frickin'. But I said it, so it doesn't matter. But I'm a frickin', when it comes to, I'm a reps person. Like, I will go hit a tennis ball against the wall for 10 hours and get lost. Like, I love it. Like, I took millions of hacks, ground balls. I played third base in high school. I couldn't get enough ground balls. I left, right, forward, whatever. I deep, even with the back. Throwing, of course, which is a shock that I got into long toss. I love throwing in. Of course, EJ knows with Jim, my partner. We were long toss partners at Northridge. So anyway, it's a long way of saying that, look, do the work, do the physical preparation. Don't get me wrong, that's still vital. But if you're 100% physical, 0% mental, or 98% physical and 2% you're maybe doing a little bit, this has to be, in my mind, more like, at least 70-30. I mean, 30%. Think about that. If you spend 40 hours a week on physical practice, which is just a round number, I'm saying 12 hours. Absolutely. 12 out of 40. Right? Now, I would almost argue that once you get to the level, I know you guys have dealt with a lot of higher level elite athletes. Once you get to players that are in professional baseball or even, high college baseball, to me, the numbers start to turn even. It starts to become almost 50-50, because if you're in the big leagues right now and you're in year 3 and you're 27, I mean, I'm not saying you can't adjust your swing a little bit or learn a better way to throw a cutter, or in your case, Aaron, teach a little trick to where you're picking up your speed. But how much physically better are you going to get?
Exactly.
Right.
But how much mentally better? So that's why I'm saying, I don't know the hours of how many swings and throws you still have to make. Yes, you still have to do that. It might be 2 or 3 hours a day. But I'm kind of getting to a point where I'm saying, if you're at this level, it's at least maybe 50-50. I know it sounds like hardcore to people, but I'm just saying, if you're doing 30 minutes a day of ground balls and BP, you can do 30 30 minutes a day of some kind of quiet time, relaxation, breathing exercises, visualization.
True. I mean, boy, this resonates. And I hope all the people out there listening dig this, because it's happened to all three of us. And being an ex-professional Major League ball player, I know for a fact that when I was 27, and I can relate to this, it came all about this meditation, reading, getting myself or mind to be free and distinctive, and that feel part would take over. And this is so funny. I remember my first major league hit was based on that. Guy threw me a fastball, I swung and missed, and the first thing I said to myself wasn't about a mechanical thing. It was this. I said to myself, if he throws me that pitch again, I will never miss it. Mm-hmm. I just knew it in my heart and my soul. It hadn't anything to do with, I got under the ball or I need to adjust my hands. No, it was about, I trust myself, and if he throws it again, I'm gonna lose that ball. And I did, off the wall for a double. But it's because of that. It's because of what you said, Alan, and what Aaron and I have talked so much about athletes as we work 4 days a week together a lot of times, is the fact that we want everyone to be free. And Alan, you could have said any better about just the trust, the instincts, and Aaron said intuition. All three of us have felt that as athletes, as teachers or educators, or just talking in life about these things. It's a life lesson. It's not even a sport issue here, people. It's a life lesson.
That's why I love that this is the topic, because I feel like we can do a podcast on a lot of things. Like we can talk about long toss, we can talk about arm care, we can talk about pitching, we can talk about hitting, running. At the end of the day, when, as I like to say, when the rubber hits the road, right? Mm-hmm. This is about getting quiet. This is about getting free, as you said. This is about getting intuitive, as Aaron said, right? This is about getting clear. This is about getting present, so to speak. So, yes, do the physical work. But I think you're kidding yourself if you don't start to really look at this like, my mind's the engine to the car. My mind is what is freeing up everything, or technically it's what could be distracting everything from quote unquote coming out freely. So it makes sense to start working more on, that mechanism, if you will, that part of me that can I can hopefully teach to be quieter so I can be free. Or if I don't pay attention to it and I'm not aware that I have this mechanism, well, then maybe that's the same thing that when the bases are loaded and there's scouts in the stands, and I'm just thinking a lot about that, of course, because that's the drama, right? That's what I call the candy. It's sweet. And so, let's go back to another huge word that I think is pivotal for all human beings, which is awareness. If you're not even aware that you have a mind that could be distracting you, or you have a mind that if you can learn to get quieter, could free you up. I mean, this is like life 101 now. This is not sports 101, as you said, EJ. This is life 101. Can we become aware now that we're in a position every single day to work on getting quieter, getting clearer, getting more relaxed, getting more focused, getting less distracted, getting less stressed? I mean, especially with COVID, especially with all the stuff going on social media. This is not sort of an add-on at the end of your day. From my experience, 31 years of doing this, and my strong opinion is that this is the precursor to your day. This is the precursor to any training, period. We can get the best running coach, the best hitting coach, the best pitching coach, the best weight training coach, the best yoga instructor, the best, you name it. We get everybody in a room, every GM, every CEO, and I'm telling you, what's going to ultimately come back to is the first thing we need to do is learn how to get quiet, learn how to get relaxed, learn where our thoughts are coming from and why are our thoughts distracting us? What does it mean to be process-oriented, not result-oriented, not caught up in the future, not caught up in the past? Awareness, though, we have to, that's why this podcast like these are so valuable, is because we're bringing awareness to people, even if they've heard, I know the mental game is important, and I've heard someone talk about meditation or yoga, and I know it's important, but it's like, it's not as tangible as stuff we can teach, where we're going to get that instant feedback. The kids are going to be like, oh, Aaron said that and EJ said that, and now all of a sudden I'm this. And that's great. And they got better right away. But as you guys know, with the mental game and with meditation and things like that, even though ironically there is tangible feedback relatively quickly, usually within one meditation, people, every time I've done a meditation, it's funny because of the NorCal factor. You know, I go back with Rob, as you guys do, 25 years or more, and we've done countless meditations with your kids, and I've done countless meditations around the country or on Zooms. And I'm not just saying this because it fits in with our talk today, but I don't know if I've ever done a meditation ever with a group of people where afterward the majority of them did not come out and say or look like, hey, I'm a little more relaxed, I'm a little quieter, I'm a little more energized. Wow, whatever was bugging me 12 minutes ago, I didn't even think about for those 12 minutes, and it doesn't even really bother me now. It's there. And I'll steal a line from another NorCal person, Dr. Shauna Shapiro, who teaches at Santa Clara University, who's one of the leaders in mindfulness in the world. And she has a line that I think she got from one of her teachers, which is, you become what you practice.
Oh, I love that.
I love that.
So are you practicing thinking and distractions and future and past, and with everything going on with the internet and COVID? It's understandable. There's a lot to be thinking about. I think the science says that we might have as many, an average human being has as many as 70,000 thoughts a day. 69% of them may be negative. It's like, okay, we've got really well practiced with that. And we're trying to be in a zone state, which is the absence of 70,000 thoughts. And we don't have a practice every day for that. We have a practice of how to run faster, of how to hit better, how to throw harder. And that's all beautiful. But we don't have a practice every day at things that are going to help us quiet our mind, clear our mind, get more relaxed, learn how to not go into conversations with our head and our thoughts and what's called ruminate on stuff over and over. And I'm not saying it doesn't happen to me. I'm just saying, like, we have to have awareness, and as coaches we have to have awareness to bring this to the kids. And that's it's funny because Sunday night I'm doing something with Jeremy Sheetinger, who was like the liaison at the APCA. He's now at Georgia Gwinnett College, where they won the national championship last year. They meditate every single day. That's one of his call lines on Twitter or in life.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
He's doing a live Periscope tomorrow with GGC, doing a guided meditation. Then he and I, Sunday night at 5 p.m. Pacific time, we're going to do a Zoom free. All we're going to do is talk about how do you implement a meditation into your practice each day. How do you do it? What does that 10 minutes look like? And so that's been sort of, I guess you could say, my mission most recently more than anything. Is I'm trying to really, and Sheets has been huge because he's hosted a podcast for ABCA and now Stick and Ball, and he's really, to me, one of the leaders in the field as far as bringing information out there, and also as a leader himself. And so I just feel like that's sort of where we've come to now. It's now, when you go to practice as a player, yes, you could say ultimately it's on the player to do the work or the additional work, but we're really trying to get coaches now to be aware that, hey, you've got 2 hours with them or 3 hours with them or even 30 minutes with them, and without guilting them to death, saying, look, put aside at least 10 minutes to help these kids arrive from school and whatever else has gone on, arrive and help them get quiet, help them relax, help them breathe, help them understand how to hopefully get out of the stuff going on in the mind. And how do I do that? How do I get neutral and start getting quiet and not get attached or get into that conversation with my thoughts? And so anyway, again, a tangent from just it's so funny. I mean, I don't know what it is. Maybe we were all separated at birth because we seem to be so in line. But you anticipated my next question, which was, hey, how do we implement this sort of thing? How do we get people to, me and EJ talk about establishing an athletic lifestyle. You know, that's part of it, making that part of your routine, making that part of who you are as an athlete on a regular basis. So, I mean, I didn't have to ask the question. You've answered it, perfectly. I love the language that you're using. I love you talking about, being in the moment, being neutral,
going to the quiet place, all of those sorts of things, I think is terminology that's not used in sports.
Yeah.
You know, especially when we're talking about instructing and teaching athletes and how they should be approaching what they're doing. And that's why I love the art of sport so much, because it can look differently on everybody, but it's still art and it's still beautiful. It comes out, you know, just in different ways.
It's 100% art. You know, you look at Ichiro's batting stance versus, you know, whoever.
Oh yeah.
You look at this picture versus that picture. I'm sure with running you see it too.
Oh yeah, exactly.
At the end of the day, that's why I keep coming back to this theme. It's about being quiet and free. Whoever you brought to the dance, right? Whatever you've learned your whole life that you're now at the dance with. Okay, well, whether it looks right or wrong or medium or whatever, but you're now at the dance and the flag goes up. So now it's just about, okay, let's get quiet and free and trust it. And then if after that race, if I need to work on some more stuff, I can work on more stuff. But in this moment that I'm here now, it's just about being quiet and free. And that's why I keep coming again back to this theme of first you have to be aware that this is all going on. Mm-hmm. Secondly, you have to be aware that there are things you can do, right? And so I just feel like that, and before I forget, and you can maybe post this with the link when this comes out.
Okay.
But I have an article on the internet that's free. It's on our website too, but it's called Mental Practice Plans. And I wrote it for exactly this reason about 6-7 years ago in collegiate baseball. And the whole principle is that if you're a coach and you're not a sports psychologist, and you're not a meditation teacher, and it doesn't matter. This is giving you some very A, B's, and C's of like, how do I lay my kids down and get them into a breathing exercise and bring them out? And what does that look like? And so that's the purpose of that. I also did with Jeremy Sheetinger, we did a 2-hour, it's hysterical, 2 hours and 47 minutes, and it would have gone longer, but it was probably like 1:30 in the morning his time, and then he had to edit it for that morning's release. But we did a deep dive into the mental game, but also I took him through a guided meditation. We broke down sort of the script, which is also in the article. And this way, because we want coaches to feel like this is user-friendly, and like this is like, oh, it's not like way over there and what's this and how do I, no, it's just, okay, you lay them down, you get them into the present moment, you get them into their body, you get them into their breathing, you do a couple things maybe here and there, you leave them alone, and you bring them out. Mm-hmm. And we just try to keep that super simple so that any coach can feel like, oh, I may not be great at it right away, but I can follow the A, B, and C. And I got to tell you, as a side note, on Twitter, which I'm very actively involved with, and Sheets and I, we've done so much work together that between the two of us, we get so many posts now. I mean, I would say it's maybe almost 1 to 2 a day. You know, we might go a day without one and then 2 or 3 on a day, but whatever the numbers are, it's just happening a lot. People are posting pictures or videos of their kids laying down in the grass. And,
I know, I see him. It's funny. I know Sheets. I met him 3-4 weeks ago. I was in North Carolina.
No way!
Exactly, with USA Baseball. So you said that, and I go, Sheets, that's Sheets. I know who you're talking about. Small world, man. Small
world, but as Stephen Wright said, it's a small world, but I'd hate to paint it.
Love it.
Genius. He'd say it's a small world, but I'd hate to paint it. He says, I like reminiscing with people I don't know.
Oh,
Stephen Wright in a nutshell. I like reminiscing with people I don't know. Don't get me started, because this is going to turn into the Stephen Wright hour.
Oh, man.
For people that are listening that don't know Stephen Wright, W-R-I-T-H-T, not the pitcher with the Red Sox.
Right.
Go to YouTube and put in Stephen Wright. He's one of the funniest comedians as far as I'm concerned in the history of the world. He is just a genius. So it's the beauty of these kind of conversations, man, especially with buddies that you go back so long with. It's like, let's talk a little Stephen Wright.
There you go. Well, great. Hey, I think we'll end it there. A great session. We'd love to have you back. Unless, EJ, there's something that you wanted to ask.
Man, we could go part 2 later on. We want to have him back, Aaron.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. We want to leave you guys wanting. There's so much we can talk about with this gentleman here. He's got a wealth of knowledge, and you see how he's able to just really bring a message to you that's easily for everyone to understand. And it's artful. It's artful.
I love that.
One of the best compliments you can give me, so thank you.
All right, sports fans out there, glad you listened and liked what you heard today. This is Coach EJ, sign out. This is The Brand.
And this is Aaron Thigpen, the Source. We'll see ya. Alan, how can people find you?
Easiest way, our website, jaegersports.com, Jaeger, jaegersports.com. Twitter is @jaegersports, Instagram @jaegersports.
Excellent. We'll see ya.